1944. For 2 long years, Europe has waited for liberation. Hitler still occupies the entire continent, but everywhere he's on the defensive. The German armies are retreating in Russia. The Allies have invaded Italy and are marching on Rome. They're certain to land in the west this year. Hitler has built his Atlantic Wall, which extends from Norway to the Pyrenees, passing through Pas-de-Calais and the beaches of Normandy. Hitler has ordered that it be made an impregnable fortress. Field Marshal Rommel, the Desert Fox, is now Commander-in-Chief of Army Group B and Inspector General of the coasts of Holland, Belgium and France, a 900-mile front. For Rommel, the battle will be fought here on the beaches. He will throw the British and American forces straight back into the sea. This will be the longest day, he warns. Rommel is not happy from the moment he sets foot on the shore. Why are these beaches so utterly devoid of obstructions? Wooden stakes and concrete piles. At high tide, they'll be hidden below the surface, and on landing will pierce the Allies' boats. To avoid them, the enemy will have to disembark at low tide. Then they'll be in gun sight for a long time with no cover. He sows millions of mines on the shore and in the sea. He's going to flood all the lowlands from Holland to the Cotentin Peninsula. What Rommel doesn't know is that the French resistance has procured the complete plans of the Atlantic Wall and has succeeded in getting them to London. The Allies know the position of each pillbox, the caliber of every gun, the strength of each infantry unit. At the Casablanca conference, Roosevelt and Churchill have agreed to continue the war until the unconditional surrender of Germany. Churchill wants to attack in the south through the Balkans, with a political motive for reaching Berlin before the Russians. But at the Tehran conference, Roosevelt and Stalin insist that the landing should be from the west. The second front that Stalin had wanted for the last 2 years will start on the Atlantic coast somewhere in France. General Marshall, Chief of General Staff, is the leading planner of the American Army. He wants to command the operation on the Western Front himself. But Roosevelt, considering the war in the Pacific and Japan as well, is against it. Marshall offers Roosevelt one of his personal staff, Eisenhower. On Christmas Day, 1943, Eisenhower becomes Commander-in-Chief of the Allied Expeditionary Forces in Europe.
In effect, the stage is being set for the beginning of the great and crucial test all over the world. I have complete confidence that the soldiers, sailors, and airmen, and all the civil populations of the United Nations will demonstrate once and for all that an aroused democracy is the most formidable fighting machine that can be devised.
Eisenhower has installed his general staff at Southwick House on the English coast. 4 are English and 3 American. February 1944. The Air Force has already begun to prepare the ground. The French pilots of the Groupe Lorraine take part in these tactical bombing missions. In 4 months, 6,000 planes make 22,000 sorties and drop 76,000 tons of bombs on occupied France. Between the Seine and the Loire, all crossroads, railway stations and bridges are being systematically destroyed. This will prove fatal to the movement of German armor in the battles to come. May 1944. All units are camped in the south of England, and the assembly points are out of bounds to civilians and severely controlled. The hour approaches. Rations are distributed and occupation money in francs. So the landing is going to be somewhere in France. But where? The soldiers will now depend on their training and their weapons to see them through. Both will have to be as sharp as possible to defeat the experienced German soldiers waiting on the other side of the water. There's plenty of time to write long letters to parents in Sussex or Oklahoma, the last perhaps. Censorship. For several days, even ambassadors are unable to communicate with their governments. England is cut off from the world. At last, the landing plans are studied on the meticulously accurate scale models. Every single tree is there, but the place names are fictitious. Is it Brittany, Normandy, or Pas-de-Calais? General George Patton, christened Old Blood and Guts by the GIs in Italy, has positioned his troops just outside Dover, opposite Pas-de-Calais. But this turns out to be just another maneuver to deceive the enemy. It completely misleads the Germans. It is exactly here, in the Pas-de-Calais, that they are waiting for the Allied attack. This is the most fortified spot on the Atlantic coast. Rommel, nervous and tired, decides to leave for Germany. It's his wife's birthday. He's also arranged a meeting with Hitler to ask for more reinforcements. The weather report is bad, so he sets off the following morning at dawn, after reassuring his troops.
Im Hinblick auf unsere starken Anlagen, im Hinblick auf den vorzüglichen Geist unserer Truppe, auf die neue Bewaffnung und die Kampfmittel, die uns in die Hand gegeben sind, können wir den kommenden Ereignissen mit größter Ruhe entgegensehen und brauchen uns keine Sekunde den Kopf zu brechen, ob es gut oder schlecht geht. Es geht bestimmt gut und ich glaube nicht, dass der Engländer ein zweites Mal wiederkommt, wenn er hier den Versuch macht.
Meanwhile, in the English ports, the troops have embarked. Loaded like pack horses, they've been issued with all equipment in triplicate. The soldiers crowd together in the holds of the ships and wait. But 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Why? The sun is still shining brightly. The most difficult thing to bear is inaction. Fighting men who fret gradually lose the fine edge of morale that has taken so long to prepare. Card games are no substitute for the release of tension. Everything depends on the weather, in fact, and also on the tide and the moonlight. In spite of appearances, the weather forecast is bad. They want to land on June the 5th, but have to turn back. The storm is too fierce in the channel. The 6th of June is still all right. The 7th is also possible, but the 8th will be too late. Eisenhower sees the effect this waiting is having on the army's morale. But what can he do? He hasn't arranged this blasted weather. On Sunday at 9 o'clock in the evening, the Chief Meteorological Officer, Group Captain J.M. Stagg, forecasts a clearing for Tuesday the 6th. Everyone turns to Ike.
I thought it was just the best of a bad bargain, so I possibly sat silently just reviewing these things, maybe, well, I'd say 35 or 45 seconds. Now it's been reported by some of the people present. For example, my own chief staff says that's 5 minutes. Well, I know that one, but 5 minutes under such conditions sounds like a year. Actually, I'd think after 30, 45 seconds, something like that, I just got up and said, okay.